We got our first look at the man accused of setting his ex-girlfriend on fire while she was working at a South Bay 7-Eleven this weekend.
Welcome to Shocking True Crime. Thanks to all our viewers and subscribers for your support. Stay with us for daily updates on the most shocking true crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe.
August 24th, 2024, started like any other day. The early morning fog blanketing the streets, the familiar hum of the city waking up. But behind the walls of a small 7-Eleven in Chula Vista, the day would soon take a dark turn. A woman would be burned alive. A man would disappear, his face etched with a story no one could understand. A crime so brutal, it left the community in shock, one question lingering in the air. How could this happen? At 8:04 a.m., firefighters rushed to 7-Eleven on Broadway. As they pulled up, the air was thick with smoke. Inside, the unthinkable was unfolding. A woman, severely burned, lay outside the store, fighting for breath. Her colleague, too, was trapped inside, unable to escape the smoke and fire. Two women, both employees, fighting for their lives in a store that, just hours earlier, was a place of mundane transactions. The woman outside was barely recognizable. Her body seared beyond repair. But inside the store, there was another story, a struggle. The kind of struggle that ends not in survival, but in death. 44-year-old Amanda Buchanan was rushed to the hospital. She would die days later, after suffering unimaginable burns. Her death, as painful as it was, left one haunting question behind: who was responsible for this heinous act? The suspect? A man. A man who had once loved Amanda, José Carlos Villanueva. But now, he stood accused of something no one could comprehend. The man who once shared Amanda's life, her love, was now the man who set her on fire, in cold blood. In front of her co-workers. In a place that was supposed to be safe. The moment he walked into that store, Amanda's life would never be the same. She couldn't see him coming, couldn't prepare for what was about to unfold. Was it revenge? Obsession? Or something else entirely? The answers remain elusive, the motives unclear. And now, the trial awaits, a courtroom where the truth must be uncovered, where the reason for this savage act must be brought to light. Who was the man behind the flames? And what drove him to commit such an unimaginable crime? What, in the end, could possibly justify the taking of a life so violently? We're about to find out. This is the story of Amanda Buchanan, a woman who became the victim of a crime that was as brutal as it was unfathomable. Stay with us as we uncover the truth. What happened that day? And why did it happen to Amanda? Amanda Buchanan wasn't just an employee at 7-Eleven, she was the heart of her family. A mother, a daughter, and a friend. For years, she lived quietly in the suburban town of Chula Vista, juggling the responsibilities of work and raising her son, Dominic. By all accounts, she was a woman who just wanted to make a living, put food on the table, and provide her son with a better future. But her life, while simple on the surface, was far from easy. Her son, Dominic, can barely bring himself to speak of her now. He is still grappling with the brutal reality of her loss, an unimaginable pain that no child should ever endure. In the days following Amanda's death, Dominic revisited the memories of his mother, but the comfort of those memories was shattered by the violence that stole her away. He recalls with fondness how she always put others before herself, how she would smile even when life seemed difficult. But in the weeks leading up to her death, something sinister simmered beneath the surface of her life. Something no one could have anticipated. Amanda's relationship with José Carlos Villanueva had once been full of love, but as with many relationships, it had its share of ups and downs. They had been together for years, long enough to build a life together, long enough to create a history filled with both love and resentment. But the cracks began to show, and what had once been a loving bond turned into a source of tension. The relationship began to fracture, and with that, so did the trust that had once held it together. The love between Amanda and José had turned into something far more complicated. Their bond, once full of affection, was overshadowed by jealousy, anger, and unresolved issues. As they grew apart, Villanueva's obsession with Amanda seemed to deepen. Their breakup marked the beginning of a dangerous downward spiral, one that no one, least of all Amanda, could have foreseen. Was it the loss of her love that triggered this violent act? Or was there something darker within Villanueva, something that had been festering long before their relationship ended? Now, standing before a judge, 49-year-old José Carlos Villanueva is accused of a crime so brutal, so unforgiving, it defies comprehension. He is charged with murder, arson causing great bodily harm, mayhem, and torture. A man once trusted by Amanda, now under the harsh scrutiny of the legal system. As investigators comb through his past, they reveal a man with a history of anger, one whose obsession with Amanda may have led him down a dark path of no return. Villanueva's past actions raise chilling questions about his state of mind, and whether he was capable of such extreme violence. But what drove him to this point? What could have possibly motivated such a horrific act against someone he had once loved? And more importantly, what did he truly think of Amanda in the end? Was it love turned to hatred? Or was there something more, something we're still trying to understand? Behind the man standing in the courtroom today lies a mind that many, including those who once cared for him, are still trying to understand. What makes a person turn so violently against someone they once loved? Can a person be consumed by jealousy and rage to the point where they lose all sense of humanity? For now, these are questions that remain unanswered. But as the trial unfolds, we will learn more about the psychological profile of the man accused of one of the most brutal acts this community has ever witnessed. This is a story of a life cut short. A mother, a daughter, and a friend, her world torn apart by an unthinkable act. And as we move closer to the trial, we are left to ask, what could possibly justify such a horrific crime? It was 8 a.m. on August 24, 2024, and Amanda Buchanan, like many mornings before, was preparing to take a brief break. She moved through the familiar motions at work, grabbing her things, adjusting her apron, and heading toward the bathroom. Little did she know that in the next few seconds, her life would be altered forever in a way she could never have imagined. Just outside, the man she once loved, José Carlos Villanueva, stood silently. The world outside was calm, but inside, a storm was brewing. Villanueva entered the store unnoticed by Amanda. With her back turned, she had no idea he was there, lurking just a few steps away, a can of gasoline in his hand. This moment would forever alter the course of her life and would come to haunt all who witnessed the aftermath. In an instant, Villanueva doused Amanda in gasoline. The sight of it, the unmistakable glint of rage in his eyes, the shock on Amanda's face, these moments unfolded in a heartbeat. As the fire began to spread, Amanda fought back with every ounce of strength she had, but the situation was already spiraling out of control. The scuffle was brief, a desperate battle for survival, but the flames grew too quickly. Villanueva set her on fire in the blink of an eye, an act of unimaginable violence that left everyone in that store frozen in disbelief. Her co-worker, a woman who had worked alongside Amanda for months, rushed to help. She tried to put out the flames, risking her own life to save her friend. But the fire was relentless. It consumed everything in its path. The seconds stretched on like hours, and despite their best efforts, the blaze spread too quickly. The heat was unbearable, the smoke thick and choking. Nothing could stop it. Not in those desperate, agonizing moments. The store was now a scene of chaos. The fire grew, smoke billowing into the air, filling every corner of the room. The sound of crackling flames drowned out everything else. The store owner, in a panic, grabbed a fire extinguisher, but it was too late for a quick resolution. The fire had taken hold, and it felt like an eternity before the flames were finally extinguished. It took 40 long seconds, an eternity in the face of such horror, before the fire was finally under control. But even as the flames were extinguished, the damage had already been done. Amanda, the woman who had walked into the store only minutes before, was now unrecognizable. Her skin, her hair, everything had been stripped away by the fire. Her life, her future, forever scarred. The woman who had once been full of life, warmth, and love for her son, Dominic, now lay fighting for her life in a hospital bed. The fire had taken more than just her physical appearance, it had taken her peace, her dignity, her sense of safety. And it left behind questions that would linger, unanswered. Why did this happen? What was the true motive behind such a brutal, senseless act? Amanda Buchanan's life was tragically stolen from her in those moments at the 7-Eleven. But for those left behind, the fight for justice had just begun. And the man responsible, the one who had set her on fire in cold blood, would soon face the consequences of his actions. But what was it that pushed him to the brink? What could have led to this act of unimaginable violence? We will uncover the answers, one step at a time. After committing the unthinkable, José Carlos Villanueva fled the scene in his BMW, speeding away from the chaos he had left behind. As he drove through the streets of Chula Vista, he remained unaware that the investigation had already begun, and the authorities were hot on his trail. With every mile, the tension built. He had no idea that his actions would soon catch up to him. It didn't take long for the police to track his every move. Within hours, license plate readers across the state had captured Villanueva's car on camera, and investigators quickly zeroed in on his location. His flight led them to a gas station in Redlands, over 100 miles away from the scene of the crime. It was there, in a quiet moment of his escape, that the authorities closed in on him. Villanueva was arrested without incident, but the real question still lingered in the air: why had he done this? Back at the crime scene, the investigation was already in full swing. Police and fire investigators combed through every inch of the 7-Eleven, collecting evidence that would eventually tie Villanueva to the horrific act. Forensic teams worked tirelessly to piece together what had happened in those terrifying moments. Blood. Gasoline. Fragments of a broken life. The evidence pointed to Villanueva, but the most chilling question remained: why had he done it? What drove a man, once trusted by the woman he loved, to commit such a savage act of violence? The investigation would soon reveal the details that linked him to the crime, but the motive still eluded investigators. In the coming days, more answers would be uncovered, and the truth about Villanueva's twisted reasoning would slowly start to unravel. But for now, one thing was certain: Amanda Buchanan's life had been stolen in the most brutal way imaginable, and the road to justice was just beginning. Amanda's injuries were beyond belief. Her body, burned beyond recognition, was a haunting reminder of the cruelty she endured in her final moments. Alma Ogden, a close friend of Amanda's, described her as wrapped like a mummy, her face and ears completely gone. Only her toes remained visible through the bandages, a grim testament to the horror she had suffered. For those who knew Amanda, the image of her last moments is an unforgettable nightmare. A woman who had once been full of life, who had laughed and loved with such warmth, was now a shell of herself, her physical appearance wiped away by flames. The terror and anguish she must have felt in those final seconds, it is a reality that will haunt her friends and family forever. Dominic Rivera, Amanda's son, was left to face a world without his mother. He watched the surveillance footage that captured the moments before she was set on fire. A son, helpless, witnessing his mother's death in the most brutal way imaginable. For Dominic, it's a nightmare. What kind of person would commit such an act? What would possess someone to take the life of a woman they once loved, to destroy her not just physically, but emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually? These are the questions that Dominic will carry with him for the rest of his life, questions that may never have answers. José Carlos Villanueva now stands before the court, facing a range of charges, including murder, arson, mayhem, and torture. The preliminary hearing, which took place just days ago, marked the first official steps in what promises to be a highly charged legal battle. For those who knew Amanda, for her family, and for the community, the courtroom now becomes the battleground for justice. All eyes are on Villanueva, who remains silent, his face a mask of indifference, as the charges are read aloud. As the judge set the next trial date for December 17, 2024, the tension in the room was palpable. The questions that have haunted everyone, why, how, and what led to this unspeakable act, remain unanswered. Will the truth behind this horrific crime ever be fully revealed? Will Villanueva's motives ever make sense to those who loved Amanda? For now, the waiting continues. The families, the community, and the public must now endure the long wait for justice. And as the trial looms on the horizon, one thing is certain: whatever comes to light, the pain of Amanda's loss will never fade. Her family's search for answers is only just beginning. Who was the man behind this brutal act of violence? Was it a crime of passion, fueled by a moment of intense emotion? Or was it something far darker, a cold, calculated rage that had been simmering for years? In the quiet of his jail cell, Villanueva sits alone, his mind a mystery to those who once knew him. Was this the act of a man who snapped, or was it the culmination of something much more unsettling? As we look deeper into Villanueva's past, we see a man struggling with emotions that were too complex, too deep to be resolved. His relationship with Amanda, once filled with love, slowly deteriorated into something else: anger, betrayal, and an overwhelming inability to move on. In flashbacks, we see glimpses of their fractured relationship. Arguments. Resentment. Long-held grudges that, like fire, only needed the spark of a final betrayal to ignite. What pushed him to the breaking point? What was it that turned a man once capable of love into someone so consumed by rage? We may never know the exact moment Villanueva crossed that line, but what we do know is that his actions that morning were the result of something much deeper. The pieces of his history, pain, obsession, and unresolved emotions, paint a picture of a man on the edge, but it's a picture incomplete, full of questions that may never be answered. We often ask ourselves, what could drive a man to commit such a heinous act of violence against someone he once loved? Was it jealousy, the kind that blinds reason and distorts the mind? Or obsession, a need for control and revenge so overpowering it drowns out all human? Villanueva's actions seem incomprehensible to most, yet they are tragically understandable in the warped context of his emotions. The mind is a complex place, and sometimes, the darkest actions come from the most broken places. But as we look closer, we find ourselves still asking, could it have been avoided? Or was this inevitable? Amanda's life was tragically cut short, taken in a way no one could have prepared for. But even in her untimely death, she left behind a legacy of love that will forever live on in the hearts of those who knew her. Her family, friends, and especially her son, Dominic, are left to pick up the pieces of a world shattered by violence. They are left to mourn not just the mother, the daughter, and the friend, but the woman whose kindness and warmth touched so many lives. Amanda was more than just a victim of a crime. She was a mother who gave everything for her son, a friend who always made time for those in need. Her life was a testament to the strength and love she shared with everyone she encountered. While her body may have been taken from this world, her spirit, the love she gave, remains in the memories of those she touched. In a world where relationships can turn to dust, where betrayal is ever present, we are forced to ask ourselves, could this have been prevented? Could Amanda have seen the danger that lurked so close to her? In hindsight, it's always easy to spot the signs, the tension, the hurt, the unspoken words. But could she have known just how far the man she once loved would go? How could anyone have known? The truth is, sometimes we never see the danger coming. Sometimes, those closest to us carry a darkness we cannot even begin to understand. And for Amanda, it was a tragedy that unfolded in the blink of an eye. But as her family and friends try to rebuild their lives, the memory of her will serve as a reminder: love, once lost, can lead to the most unforgiving consequences. The question lingers. Will justice be served? And in the end, who is truly to blame for the tragedy of Amanda Buchanan? Was it the man who set her on fire, or the unresolved emotions and toxic feelings that led him to this point? As the trial unfolds, those closest to Amanda wait for the answers. But in truth, the answers may never come. There will always be a gap between what happened and why it happened. The story is far from over. The search for justice continues, but the truth may never be fully known. For those who loved Amanda, the question of why will never fade. It will linger in their minds, shaping their lives, long after the courtroom doors have closed. For them, the wound will never truly heal. The trial is only the beginning. The search for truth is far from over. Stay tuned as new developments emerge, and the pieces of this chilling case continue to fall into place. Will more secrets come to light, or will the truth remain hidden in the shadows? Join us next time as we delve deeper into the mind of a killer and uncover the disturbing secrets that led to one of the most horrific crimes in Chula Vista's history. What drove him to take such a brutal and final action? And what truths will surface as the case unfolds? In the end, we are left to ponder the moral questions. What happens when love turns to hate? When trust is shattered, and the line between right and wrong becomes blurred? What does it truly mean to know someone, and how far can betrayal push us? In cases like this, we are forced to confront the uncomfortable reality that sometimes, the worst acts come not from strangers, but from those we once called our own. Sometimes, the most horrific crimes happen not in the shadows, but in the places we least expect, where love turns toxic, and obsession leads to unimaginable violence.
Welcome to Shocking True Crime. Thanks to all our viewers and subscribers for your support. Stay with us for daily updates on the most shocking true crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe.